Support for First Coast Connect is provided in part by Baptist Health and North Florida TPO.
Good morning, I'm Ann Schindler, and this is First Coast Connect. Today, a system designed to detect abuse, accused of abuse. We talked to a mom recently reunited with her children who says wrongful allegations are destroying families, and a former DCF chief who agrees. Later in the program, wide-ranging sounds of music from a Broadway legend performing a winter symphony to an award-winning local marching band. But first, a new 3-part New York Times podcast examines the problems of overly zealous child abuse pediatricians, and it includes a sharp focus on Florida. Here to tell us about their own experiences with the system, we're joined by David Abramowitz, former chief of the State Department of Children and Families, Northeast Florida region. David, good morning.
Oh, hi, Ann. How you doing this morning?
We're also joined by Diana Sullivan, mother of 3, who was reunited with her children 19 months after they were taken by the state. Diana, good morning.
Good morning.
So, Diana, first of all, congratulations. You got your children back earlier this year, but it was a long time without them. Can you remind us a little bit about the circumstances that initiated this long child absence? You had a daughter. You had twins that were premature. One of them had a lot of growth, uterine growth, and early, kind of health issues.
Absolutely. Yes, we had a lot of complications during pregnancy, especially with her intrauterine growth restriction. So she was quite small, under 1 percentile. Her brother was larger, obviously. We went out the day before. She was about to hit her 3-month marker. That's kind of like when you say their immune system's good to go. So we were ready to hit the town. We went to Dave & Buster's. We kind of spent the day in Jack's. And the next morning, about 3 a.m., my husband came and got me after a feeding and said that she had a right swollen thigh. And that is what started it. We immediately brought her to the ER and were transferred to the local children's hospital.
And it was after your daughter was assessed that you initially met as someone who's called a child abuse pediatrician. This is someone who's brought in when there are injuries to a child and there are concerns that need to be assessed. And so in this case, when your daughter was x-rayed, they found a number of prior fractures. Is that right?
So initially, they found an acute right femur fracture. And then they stated they found, I believe it was approximately 4 healing rib fractures, posterior rib fractures. And then it kind of snowballed from there as far as the amount of injuries once the child abuse pediatrician stepped in and started evaluating the case.
And so she gave you a rather difficult description of what she believed had happened to your daughter, who at this point, we should say, she was born premature, so she was a very underweight baby, in addition to the intrauterine growth restriction that she had. And so even though she was 3 months, she was still smaller than many newborns.
That is correct. Yeah, so we brought her to the hospital at 11 weeks and 6 days old, and at that point, she was exactly 8 pounds, so about the size of a newborn at that point.
And so the doctor said that the injuries that she detected and believed that were present couldn't have been caused by ordinary handling.
No, because we did give several scenarios and situations that had arisen and asked if she was, since she is so small and she just got diagnosed with GERD, and was projectile vomiting, and we had to do back slaps a couple times and things like that to get her breathing, or we thought she was aspirating or choking. Of course, everything was blown off. She was strapped improperly into the car seat the day before with her leg strapped wrong. So that's the only thing we could think of for the leg. And then her theories on how everything else occurred that she claimed that she found were so descriptive.
What did she say she thought, the degree of force that would have been required to injure your daughter in that way?
And I mean, of course, trigger warning for anyone's listening that's been through the process. I do apologize, but these are her words. And she looked at me and said that my daughter was drop kicked across the room, that someone held my daughter behind her back and physically punched her repeatedly in the abdomen. and squeezed her like a roll of paper towels and violently shook her.
So, obviously, a claim like that coming from somebody who is in a position of medical authority as a child abuse pediatrician is, and I'm sorry, I know this is upsetting, Diana, um, but you were then kind of moved into the system, and rather quickly things escalated. Your husband was ultimately arrested. All three of your children were ultimately taken, um, and the process wore on. You came not just, into the system, but perilously close to losing your children forever.
Absolutely. It seemed like they were very much wanting to fast track this case, and immediately mentioned to terminate our parental rights within the first 72-hour hearing of removing our children. And our children were removed within 24 hours of entering that hospital.
And, this doesn't necessarily absolve anything for people who are accused of abuse, but it's worth noting that you had tried for many, many years to have children. You had gone through in vitro twice and had a long and stable relationship with your husband, who you've known since you were in middle school.
Yes, we met in the sixth grade PE, exactly, and became best friends. Waited till we were 21 so we could toast with champagne, and been married ever since. And went through infertility treatments for about 14 years before we got our daughter Arabella.
That's your oldest. And then you
Yes.
continued having IVF and had the twins.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So, David, I want to return to the doctor in her case in a bit because she has a long history and a lot of incidents and concerns about her assessments. But first, I want to turn to this recent podcast that we mentioned. It was released by the New York Times in late October. It's called The Preventionist, and it focuses on a child abuse pediatrician, a different one with different concerns. This was Dr. Deborah Jensen, and she worked in Allentown, Pennsylvania. She was later named as a defendant in lawsuits filed by 27 Pennsylvania families. Some of those are still continuing, but the podcast includes recordings from those families speaking really emotionally at a public hearing from August of 2023. I want to take a listen to it and then ask you about it. But these families spoke for more than 2 hours at this public meeting. Let's listen.
I brought my child to the ER for complaints of pain and difficulty sitting up.
Wearing socks, and I slipped on the stairs and I dropped my daughter on the hard wooden stairs. Our child is 3 months old.
13 years
Had her
old.
12-year-old and 17-year-old daughters.
Almost 4-month-old son.
2 months old.
My 7-week-old.
This is abuse. We are traumatized. We are afraid of doctors now. I'm afraid of doctors now.
We still have a lot of sleepless nights. You try to push it to the back of your mind, but the awfulness of what happened is always.
For me personally, it's about the shame. It's unimaginable to be wrongfully accused of child abuse. For all of us, a lot of the damage is already done.
In the long run, the children wound up home, but then also wound up kind of broken.
So, David, you're interviewed in the podcast because you actually supervised this doctor while she was in Florida before she moved on to Pennsylvania, and you saw some red flags when you were supervising her. Tell us a little bit about what you experienced with Dr. Jensen.
First of all, Diana, I'm so glad your children are back with you where they need to be. There is a trauma associated when you remove a child, and when a child protective investigator, who's the quarterback that makes the decision, not this doctor, it's the investigator, that young investigator who sometimes just finished school, that has to go to house and make determination. And the doctor, the CPT, child protective, is a part of the puzzle, isn't the puzzle, is a part of the puzzle. Does it. So the trauma that a child leaves when you make a decision to remove a child, you better get it right, because that trauma afterwards is so tough on that child that after even you reunite them or whatever, there's something about the relationship about a child, whether the mom is having challenges or not, that not keeping that child with that mother is detrimental to that child for years and years to go. So I'm so happy your children are back with their loving mother, where they should not have been, probably removed. I don't know the case. The doctor in question, I didn't supervise her. If I would have been supervised her, this would not have occurred. She wasn't a supervisor. The doctors are a separate entity that make a decision.
Okay.
I had to deal with her, and I dealt with many, many doctors because I had, I think, 23 counties when I was the director from 2015. And when I first got there in 2014, all my investigators said her name, and there were challenges and problems because she wanted to remove kids constantly. Her job is to medically determine, did she feel like she was abused, if the child was abused, sexually, whatever. We have experts that do that. Her job is not to investigate. We have child protective investigators. That's their job, to talk to families, to talk to your family, talk to the other doctors, talk to anybody in the family to come up with the whole puzzle to determine, is it best, is a child going to be safer removing them, or do we provide services for that family? Many of our families just don't have money. And it's a lot. And an example, if you don't mind, when I first got there, we had a child, 3-year-old child, that got burnt because the mom didn't have a lot of money, was making ramen noodles. And many of us that are parents have seen that. And the 3-year-old comes up there, tipped, and the water went boiling water, 2nd-degree burns. Total accident. This doctor, Dr. Jensen, wanted to remove the children from the house. I said no, because it got to me. The problem is when you're the region director and you have 1,500 people, you have to build a relationship with your team that they can call you 24/7, or else things like this that happened to Miss Diana occur. So I got a call, and I go, we're not removing this child. And I called her. I talked to Dr. Jensen. I go, we are removing him. This was an accident. She goes, but it can happen again. I go, it's an accident. We're going to help out this family with resources to help them get daycare, to get childcare. We are not going to remove children that we feel that are detrimental for them because of trauma. But she was a horrible doctor, I think a horrible person, and her boss, the doctor who was in charge of her, was just as bad because I went to him too. And it's almost like they supported each other, even though it was wrong. And thank God, I know it took 19 months. You must have had some money or something, because a lot of people lose their children because they don't have any support. In our region, at least for the 4 years I was there, in that region, now Duval County had no issues. Daytona County, no issues. My only problem was in Gainesville because of her, and her staff was intimidated by her. So everything she said was gone because she's a doctor, and they go, she must know best. And I refuse. She made an IG complaint against me. She thought it was personal. It wasn't personal. I just wanted to make sure that families were taken care of with the right. Sometimes the right decision is to remove them. But for the most part, sometimes we want to keep the children together.
Yeah. If you're just joining us, we are talking about the problem of incorrectly diagnosing child abuse. If you or someone you know is experiencing this, has dealt with it, or been a part of the system, we would love to hear from you. You can give us a call at 904-549-2937. You can email First Coast Connect at wjct.org, or you can go to firstcoastconnect.org and find all of the links to connect with us. Diana, the expense is no small matter, and your family did end up spending an enormous amount of money to recover your children and get your family back. But the absence is something that, really can't be regained. And that time is forever lost, as David said. So how has your family been recovering since you've been able to get the children back together? I mean, you're a beautiful family. I know people who are watching our live stream are able to see some photos of you since you were reunited.
Oh, that's great. Well, unfortunately, since then, you go through fight or flight during those moments. And I guess once my body relaxed a little bit, I realized that I had an aggressive autoimmune disorder kind of take over. So right now I was able to take a step back from work. So be with my children full time is a huge blessing for them. And then, of course, it's just constant therapy for each one of us. And it will be. to talk about it. My daughter, we were in line checking out with Christmas presents, and she decided to have a conversation with the lady behind her about the bad times, is what she calls it. Well, this time last year, I wasn't able to see my mom and dad because of the bad times, and they kept us apart. So it's very much real for her, and I allow her to speak about it to whoever she wants to. I am not ashamed. I know our truth. I know my children were not hurt, and if she needs to get it out in that moment, by all means, let her get it out. And you mentioned we must have had money to fight. Unfortunately, we do not have money, but you find the resources. There is no bigger pit bull than a mother chasing after her children that were wrongfully taken. So we took mortgages out on the house. We sold everything we had. We are still financially, I want to say recovering, but that may not be our end result.
You also, during this period, became part of a much larger network of families that have gone through this. And, we heard some of those voices from Allentown, Pennsylvania, but it's not a unique problem. There are families that have lost permanent custody of their children. And, I know of cases certainly here in Northeast Florida where that's happened. I know that you've spoken to a lot of families. What kind of changes do you think need to happen to the system? In your case, your daughter ended up being diagnosed with a genetic disorder. You also have it, osteo.
So I have osteopenia, which is right before osteoporosis, but diagnosed at a young age. So it's abnormal for my bones to be so weak. I also have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is a connective tissue disorder, rheumatoid arthritis, and several other autoimmune disorders. And I'm a carrier of a gene of unknown certainty, of course, because that's an ever-evolving scientific research, is your genes of osteogenesis imperfecta, which my daughter carries as well. My other children do not carry it. And so she has been diagnosed with EDS with an OI overlap, which is the osteogenesis imperfecta, brittle bones, on top of just they saw demineralization in her bones at the time of incident, which means that she wasn't getting the proper nutrients, vitamin D, calcium, protein needed.
Right. And so the families that you've met and heard from during this whole process, are you all on the same page about what the problem is? Do you believe that the issue is child abuse pediatricians per se? Is it the larger system that isn't being responsive to parents? Do you think that there's too great of a tendency to remove just to be on the safe side?
And I wish I could say yes. I want to, in the beginning, I wanted to have great faith that this system did help a majority of families that came through its path. But as I navigated through it, not saying that's not the case. There are children that need to be removed and have safety plans put in place, but there is an incentive here for children to be removed and to not stay with family. I had to fight for my children to come out of foster care and to be placed with kinship. We had family coming out of the woodwork for them, and DFACS just fought every single one of them and just postponed the removal of my children from foster care into kinship. And unfortunately, they don't get financial incentives. They don't get
family
aid when they go into kinship.
Okay.
They do get aid when they are in foster care. So, and ultimately what happened was they forced one of my relatives to become a foster parent, a certified foster parent, so they can continue to get the funding before they would move them all together.
David, I want to ask you about that. There certainly are pressures on an agency not to mess up and to not have a child that is in a dangerous situation or perhaps, killed, which does happen sometimes when kids are not removed from the home. And so, there's certainly an incentive perhaps to err on the side of caution. But there is also a difficulty in assessing these situations. People want certainty. People want to know whether it's an investigator or a police officer who's responding. They want answers from a child abuse pediatrician. They want to know conclusively, and there are gray areas. Do you think that system is predisposed to lead to kind of a certainty within the diagnosing pediatrician and perhaps less flexibility in recognizing the possibility of alternate explanations?
I think every decision we make needs to be in what's the best interest of the child. Every decision a investigator makes needs to be that. And I think it's about, I'm an Army guy for 31 years, and everything about me is all about leaders and leadership that makes decisions on it. I can only speak for Northeast Region because that was where it was. We had a Northeast Region director before me and after me. And that director has to be engaged so the investigators feel comfortable enough that they can go directly to you. But to answer your questions about you're right, the kinship, and when I did remove children, and we did, I always tried to move it to kinship. Decision wasn't because of money. The decision was because I thought the children knew the family. So it had nothing to do with money. It had something to do with I wanted to get them back to the families. And if we get to the grandmother, uncle, there's a safety plan there so the mama, father can see them. So for me, the decision wasn't monetary. It was all for what is best for the child. But to answer your other question about the CPT, we have rogue CPT people. I don't think they mean anything negative. I don't think they had anything personally against Diana. I think what happens, they get in their position, no one's educating them that you have a function. Your function is determined, do you feel there was abuse? And if there was, that's it. The CPI is the one that talks to the other families. I guarantee the CPT CAP person probably never even interviewed her, never talked to the father at all. All they did was see the kid. If the kid was 1 or 2 years old, you can't talk to them. Didn't talk to other children. They're not investigating. They're just providing an MRI and a picture frame and go, ha. I think this happened, and now they get into investigative role. It's not their function.
I want to return to the podcast on that topic because there is a segment, and we're going to listen to it, where some of the parents never did meet the person that was sort of essentially diagnosing them with a psychological disorder, and it ended up being very consequential. So these were families who testified after receiving this diagnosis. Let's take a listen.
Our son was taken to the hospital. Our 11-year-old autistic son did not see a family member for over a week and spent his favorite holiday in a hospital room. We lost custody of our son for 4 months with no investigation. A woman who had never met us or our son simply decided that he fit her criteria.
One after the other, they talk about their confusion, about how they still can't really understand what happened, about the astonishment, for some of them, of receiving a Munchausen by proxy diagnosis.
We were immediately banned from the hospital and accused over a weekend of suffering from a psychological disorder by doctors who never met us. Expert physicians, multiple psychologists, teachers, and school staff, over 15 witnesses tried to get a hold of CYS to dispute allegations, but none of it mattered. There is no investigation. To this day, we have never had contact with our son again.
I mean, that is a really shocking thing. You know, one of the things that this investigation found, the New York Times investigation, was that this doctor was responsible for a third of the Munchausen syndrome by proxy diagnoses in all of Pennsylvania. This one little town, Allentown, Lehigh Valley area, which certainly seems outsized. It is not necessarily a very common diagnosis. I mean, they say it's a psychological condition that's popular in miniseries, very rare in real life. But that, along with shaken baby syndrome, are both things that have come under the microscope and are perhaps being challenged more as, you know, are they truly as legitimate as they once were perceived to be?
A great point, Ann. She used that diagnosis with me 3 times too. And I turned on the SVU thing that a year ago that had the series on proxy by Munchausen, whichever it was. She must have got it from the TV show. And I researched it. And I go, are you joking me? Really? Have you talked to the mother, father, family? No, I don't do that. I just know by reading these pictures. And we obviously didn't have a great relationship, me and her. And I stopped all decisions from her unless the investigators thought the children were moved and you agreed with all the things. And I was a decision maker for the next year she was in. I wouldn't allow her to be personally in making decisions to remove children because I didn't think she had the right framework to be able to do it. She wasn't doing her job. But and overall, what I found out, most of the system is good. The system works. If you have good leaders and you have good people, then something's not right and sounds right. You get engaged. I'm lucky because I was a retired colonel in the Army and I had a pension. My other regional directors would always call me, go, Dave, how are you standing up for this stuff? And I go, it's right. And they all thought the same thing, but they need a job too.
Well, filling these positions is not easy. I mean, we should say, the doctor that assessed you and your daughter, Diana, she's since left, but she came to her job here in Florida after, a really sort of checkered history. I mean, in terms of similar complaints in Wisconsin, similar complaints in Alaska. These are difficult positions. They are, doctors who are being asked to look at horrible instances of abuse. And, doctors train for trauma, but that doesn't mean that you can never get over looking at a child where the abuse is deliberate. That is sort of different than looking at a car accident every day. And so we should not, underestimate how hard it is to do this work and also how hard it is to fill these positions, perhaps leading to a reluctance to have someone move on.
I've been to CPT investigations. I've led to a 1 or 2 year old that's being investigated. Nobody wants to go through that at all. And if you have to do that constantly, I can understand how your mind could be jaded. But once again, you're not the decision maker. It's the investigator. But if you got a 25-year-old investigator right out of UNF, social worker, and you have a doctor who's 60 years old with a medical profession, and she goes, it's abuse. What's the 25-year-old going to do, realizing if the child gets hurt again, it's my job? I understand that. So you need a leader above that can go, I'll make the call for you. And I would do that. I would say, put myself in FizFin. I made the decision then.
I want to take a call from Tom on the West Side. Good morning, Tom. Go ahead.
Good morning to you, too. Just wanted to say that I've been through this system, too, and it's a very broken system. As he just mentioned, the investigators are frequently very young and very inexperienced and very underpaid. In addition to that, when my medically complex son was born, the stress was enough that it killed my relationship with the mother. So we're going to court, and I'm trying, because I'm working, obviously, I'm a working adult. So medically complex child was going to be more than I could handle. So I asked them, how about a middle option? Can you just give me visitation and consultation on medical issues instead of the all or nothing full restoration or full denial of parental rights? And they said, oh, that option doesn't exist. They need to fix the system so that there is some option for parents that still restores the connection with the child. And I'm so happy that this woman got her child back. God bless.
Thank you, Tom. We also have an email from Mark. He says, hello. Clearly, it's terrible for families to be wrongly accused of abuse. A quick Google search revealed to me that 53% of Black children experience child welfare investigations by age 18, and 1 out of 9 will be removed from the home. Black children are 15% more likely to be removed than white children. Goes on to talk about the disparities, and that is true. They've found that in gray area cases, research has shown that when they have doctors analyze pamphlet or case files, that when there's a gray area decision, that the custody issue often goes against families of color, families from minority communities, and so it's not necessarily a bias-free exam process.
I found many times to remove a child if the kid was like 6 or above, where they could speak and talk. Removing a child after that is obviously very traumatic. I have found neglect is probably one of the main reasons you do it. I personally didn't like removing children from neglect because I felt it was cheaper to give resources there than pay a foster kid. And secondly, probably first, once again, the relationship of a mama, and I'll use the mom, but father too, is so strong. No matter how good our the mother is, she's going to be better a lot of times than the foster child. And you're right. The poorer the area in Jacksonville, and I knew the area codes we went to all the time because they tell on each other. Because the way you get in there, you have to call 1-800-96-ABUSE. And someone doesn't like somebody, you just call the abuse and say, I see this. Or teachers can call because the kid's not eating. And we go there, and we found, at least in this region at that time, we just provided funds to help them with food, money, mostly childcare that can help with Head Start and stuff that would be able to help them. But that was sad that there is a definite
disparity. Sure. Diana, I will kind of give you the last word here. What would you like people to know about how your experience, you would like to see changes come from it?
So, and David, I appreciate everything that you did while, you were in your position and the good that you see in it. I wish there was more like you in control. But what I've noticed in these CPT meetings, that these CAPs are the driving force.
Yeah. The child abuse pediatricians.
The child abuse pediatricians. And I can't go into full detail because I was able to read case narrative. I'm able to read transcripts. But they are not finding a differential diagnosis. They don't want to find out what's wrong with your child. They want to prove they are correct. And that is what they will do and until the bitter end. It needs an overhaul within the CAPs. They have way too much power, unfortunately, and DCF or CPT just follow their lead.
Well, Diana Sullivan, so glad that you're back with your children.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for coming on today. David Abramowitz, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Miss Ann.
All right, my next guest defined the role of Christine in the Phantom of the Opera. It was a role written by her then husband, Andrew Lloyd Webber, that she originated both in London and on Broadway. I had the chance yesterday to talk to the Grammy-nominated soprano Sarah Brightman about her upcoming holiday performance. Let's take a listen. Sarah Brightman, thank you so much for being here.
It's lovely to talk to you.
So you have done so many things in your career, from pop music to acting, stage performing, working as a classical soprano. For a lot of the world, though, you're always going to be known as Christine from the Phantom of the Opera. How did that role shape your professional career?
I think it was very much part of my career. I'm not sure it shaped it, but obviously it opened up a very wide audience for me, especially in the United States. And it's very interesting, actually, because in many other parts of the world, I'm not necessarily known for that part. I'm known for other recordings I've done and whatever. But I think definitely here in the United States, I am known very much for that, which I'm very proud of.
And you have performed on stage in London. Obviously, you originated this role there and then on Broadway. More recently, you have been performing in the show Sunset in Australia. I'm curious, how are the theaters there different, or how is it distinct working in one country versus another when you're doing a massive musical stage show like that?
There really isn't any difference, to tell you the truth. I've been doing sort of live concerts all over the world, sort of coming off my recordings or whatever. And you find that generally audiences, if they're really enjoying something, the reaction is the same. You'll have some sorts of countries like Japan, for example, they're much quieter in the way that they applaud you. Obviously that's there are many things that are cultural in that way. But generally, you find, your rehearsal time, the things you do are exactly the same in each country. It's actually wonderful, actually, because you can go to all these countries and do what you know how to do, and it works.
So this show that you're coming to town for in Jacksonville this weekend is a holiday show. It's called A Winter Symphony. It's actually, you had an album of that same name several years ago. So tell us a little bit about what goes into producing a holiday themed show. How do you design it? And why do you want to do it in the first place?
This of all of my shows, it's the one I'm really passionate about. And I think it's because this sort of seasonal time of year and the holidays, Christmas, is very important to me. And I think it's a very emotional time for people. So I put a huge amount of work into working out which pieces of music I'm going to do, orchestral, choir, myself singing them. And I've made a very particular show, which is incredibly beautiful, actually, because I think the Christmas story and Christmas generally and the holiday season is a very magical time of year. So I've created something which people say they're sort of transported. I've been talking to a lot of meet and greet people after the shows that I've already been doing here, and they're just kind of taken over and overwhelmed by how wonderful it is. And I put a lot of thought and time into it. It looks beautiful, it sounds beautiful, and I think I give people a really good time, as well as myself, because I'm passionate about it. So that's really what it is. It's something in there really for everybody, with all the different types of songs there are.
And if people are familiar with that previous album, are there songs that they should expect to hear, things like Ave Maria or Silent Night? Are those songs that you perform on the album similar to the kinds of songs that you'll be performing here in Jacksonville?
Absolutely, yes. They will be hearing a lot of those songs that are on that album. But also, what I've managed to do, some of the sort of bigger hits that I've had, like Time to Say Goodbye, Phantom of the Opera, we've given them a sort of like seasonal twist, in that we've brought in things in the arrangement which make them sound quite sort of Christmassy and sort of New Year's feeling. So so people that love my bigger hits, they will be hearing those as well.
Yeah, I guess you can't go away without performing some of those for your fans.
Yeah,
you're also performing with an orchestra, with a choir. This is quite a stage production, and so I would imagine that having that kind of surrounding, makes producing the show that much more sort of complicated, but also festive.
Yes, exactly. It's very rewarding, because when you think of music and Christmas, generally it does bring in the choir sound. People think of that. And also, I think with even some of the simpler songs, the sort of Christmas message is a bigger message. And the thought of orchestras with that is very important. It brings a sort of importance to it, a grandness to it. And also the orchestra are able to do some wonderful Christmas pieces, orchestrations, which are lovely, where I'm not necessarily singing there. I'm changing into the next beautiful Christmassy gown. So, which I take a lot of care with choosing. So it moves along. The show has obviously two parts. It moves along really fast, though. People get an interval, which is nice, because they like to discuss stuff and have a break. But I don't know. I've been doing this now around the world for about 4 or 5 years, and it's become sort of really important to me, and people really enjoy coming back to see it as well.
And correct me if I'm wrong, that you did a performance, like a Christmas concert with your now ex-husband, Andrew Lloyd Webber, who of course is the author of The Phantom. You all are not married anymore, but you've remained strong friends and collaborators. Can you tell us a little bit about that collaborative relationship?
I think when you find somebody that you have collaborated, and it was a good relationship in that way, even though sort of maybe romantically you're not together anymore and your lives move on. I mean, both of our lives have moved on into completely different directions and things. But we always come together, and if there's something interesting we can do, we do that because we're passionate about what we do. And I think probably that part when we were together and Phantom was created, the Requiem was created, and it was actually rather nice because when I went over to do Sunset with the Australian Opera a couple of years ago, I was a little bit worried because I knew that it had been written, or I thought it had been written for voices which were different to mine. They were lower and more sort of Broadway sounding. And I did have this discussion with him about that. I said, I'm a soprano. How am I going to manage it? He said, oh, no, most of these pieces were written on your voice because I was writing it at the time that we were together. So he said, you'll find it very familiar once you get into it.
Isn't that something?
It's rather lovely, actually. So I was able to do it.
That's wild to think that was, in his mind as he's, writing that music. I wanted to ask you about going back to theater because it had been a while since you had been on stage when you took the role performing at the Sydney Opera House and doing this role in Sunset. Was it fun going back on stage? Was it difficult to make that step again?
I was totally trained to be able to do it. I did a huge amount of preparatory work for the accent, for the time that Norma Desmond was living, everything like that. So it wasn't like I was unprepared, but it was very different walking. When I go and do my concerts, I do my own preparatory work, and then I walk on stage. I do sound checks with musicians, work with them, and then I do it. But it took me a while to get my head around it. I have to tell you, walking into a rehearsal hall with just all the white tables and everybody there and all the ensemble were around. And but once I would say the first 10 days was quite scary. But once I was in it, it was like I'd always done it. So it was fine.
Well, I know that people are going to enjoy seeing you on stage here in Jacksonville. It's called Sarah Brightman's A Winter Symphony. It's this Saturday, December 6th at 8 p.m. at the Jacksonville Center for the Performing Arts in the Moran Theater. Sarah Brightman, it's a delight to talk to you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Lovely, and lovely to talk to you, and happy holidays to you all.
To you as well. And we'll be back in just a minute.
Congaree & Penn, dedicated to agriculture and culinary endeavors, offering field-to-fork dining and outdoor experiences on over 300 acres. Sip, dine, explore. Information at congareeandpenn.com. Terrell Hogan Law.
I'm Wayne Hogan. When people are hurt through no fault of their own, finding the who, what, when, where, why, and how that led to the accident is critical to proving the truth.
More at terrellhoganlaw.com.
On the next Fresh Air, George Clooney. He became famous at 34. Late enough, he says, that he learned how to live before he learned how to be famous. His new character, Jay Kelly, wasn't so lucky. Clooney will talk about playing a movie star who has the fame part down, but the father, partner, friend part, not so much. Join us.
Today at noon on WJCT News 89.9.
Mark Wolf spent 40 years as a judge on the federal bench. Now he's resigned, calling President Donald Trump, quote, uniquely dangerous.
The Department of Justice is not investigating possible corruption by people who are doing things to profit the president and his family. It's deeply disturbing.
I'm Meghna Chakrabarti, former federal judge Mark Wolf, on the next On Point.
Today at 11 on WJCT News 89.9.
The Trump administration is pausing asylum decisions, halting visas for Afghans who aided in the U.S. war effort, and planning to add countries to the travel ban list.
I don't want them in our country. Their country's no good for a reason. Their country stinks, and we don't want them in our country. I could say that about other countries, too.
How legal pathways to immigration are shrinking and what you need to know. Next time on 1A.
Today, starting at 10 on WJCT News 89.9.
Welcome back. It has been an award-winning season for the Fletcher High School Marching Band, and they are now gearing up for concert season. It's something they would like your help preparing for. Here to tell us about it is Liz Vincent, clarinet player for the Fletcher High School Band. Liz, welcome.
Hello.
We're also joined by Samantha Wallace,
Hi.
the band's color guard captain. Hey, Sam, thanks for being here. And we're also joined by the band lieutenant, Brianna Phillips, who plays euphonium and trombone. Brianna, thanks for being here.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
So, Liz, tell us a little bit, first of all, just how the season went for the marching band. You were representing the Duval County schools at the state level.
Yeah, so we had a wonderful season, a great show. Our show this year was entitled To the Nines, a Gatsby Party. It was a lot of fun to perform, and we competed lots. And yeah, it was a great season. And we're all very excited for our indoor season and our concert season.
So for people who aren't familiar, obviously people associate marching bands, I do, with, kind of football season, but it is not, it's a fairly year-round endeavor for you guys.
Yeah.
So tell us what the season looks like. You start out in the fall. When do you begin your practices?
So we have 3 weeks of band camp that starts in like the middle of July. And then we jump right into the school year where we have rehearsals twice a week for like about 3 to 4 hours. And we do that for about 3 months. And we do competitions starting in about October, like end of September. And before then, we obviously do our football games. And we keep doing those until the end of the season.
Yeah. And so now you're going to be headed to some other performances, including, Sam, you're going to, I think, Daytona 500 this year. You were invited.
Yes, ma'am.
So first of all, you're with the color guard. You're kind of helping to interpret the music for people and kind of get the audience enthused for what they're hearing, because they're also seeing this visual component. And so how did you get involved in it? And tell us a little bit about your expectations for a big gig like Daytona.
So a couple years ago, the band had an opportunity with band and chorus to go to New York, and I got to kind of participate with the color guard and dancing. I've always had a passion for dancing, and I really enjoy just to kind of move my body around. So a lot of the color guard and band people really encouraged me to join. So I took a friend, went to auditions, and here I am.
Wow. And so as you're looking forward to a really high profile event like at the 500, do you prepare differently for that? What are the expectations that you go in with?
Expectations are essentially we do a lot of practicing and a lot of rehearsal to make sure everything's pretty clean. So I would say expectation is that we're all together. We're all honestly having a good time, and a pretty stressed expectation with color guard is that you keep that performance up. So honestly, just keep smiling and really enjoying getting to go to this high profile event.
Yeah. And when you are talking about going to this event, Brianna, it's not something that is free, obviously. Any of these events and all of the work that you do, whether it's, costuming or gear for the color guard, or even just, maintaining your own instruments, takes money. So one of the reasons that we wanted to talk to you today is you guys are gearing up for a really big annual fundraiser that you do.
Yes, our silent auction is what we're looking forward to most. It's coming up this Friday, and we're basically getting a bunch of baskets together that our sections have made. So we are
it's like each section member brings in a certain basket, and then we put in like items for the basket. So we have cozy baskets, baking baskets, craft baskets, and everyone is allowed to like auction for them. We also have some special items like guitars signed by Leonard Skinner, and also Jaguars tickets if you wanted to come for those. But it is just like something that gets like a lot of money and like funding for the band program that we're looking forward to.
And I mean, that's one component is money. What kind of community response do you all get? How much support do you get from the community just for the work that you do, the performances that you give, and really kind of the awards that you've already taken home?
Honestly, like the community is so supporting of all of us. We are the like pride of the beaches, so everyone does love to come out and like support us. We're very like local and very involved, so it's a lot of like overwhelming support.
And I would guess that you are also, Liz, sort of hitting up your friends and neighbors. I'm sure that their resources are also being tapped as you try to, just get together the funding that's needed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so are you a pretty good ambassador for the band when you're going around and trying to encourage people to join, to contribute?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah. So your expectations for Daytona?
I feel like we're going to do a lot of like stand tunes, which is what we mostly do at our football games. Very exciting. It's going to take a little bit of practice, and it's going to need to take everyone to get back together to re-rehearse stuff that we've already done. So we can definitely pull it off.
Yeah, well, it is a long road ahead, but I know you guys will do it. The auction preview is December 2nd. The bidding starts December 3rd, and the items are on display at Southern Swells Brewing on December 5th, starting at 7:30. You can go to fletcherband.org. You can also find a link on our website, firstcoastconnect.org. Liz Vincent, Samantha Wallace, Brianna Phillips, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
All right, and that's our program. Thank you for listening. If you have comments, questions, or suggestions, you can send it all to firstcoastconnect.org. You'll find all the ways to connect with us there. And while you're there, you can sign up for our new daily newsletter, which will give you all kinds of behind-the-scenes info about the show, upcoming guests, and a chance to contribute questions in advance. First Coast Connect is produced by Stacey Bennett. Our associate producer is Isabella Casapow. Our show is directed by Brady Coram, and our theme music is performed by Club de Belugas. Join us tomorrow when we break down the week's top headlines with our panel of reporters, including why the Duval County school system is no longer warning of a $100 million deficit. I'm Ann Schindler. You've been listening to First Coast Connect on WJCT News 89.9.
Support for First Coast Connect is provided by Baptist Health and the North Florida TPO.
The North Florida TPO is committed to shaping our transportation future. We're focused on planning, funding, clean fuels, and new technologies for a vibrant, connected community. Learn more at northfloridatpo.com. Baptist Health is a proud supporter of First Coast Connect. Baptist Health, committed to building a healthier community for all of us. More info at 202-4YOU or baptistjacks.com. The Women's Board benefiting Wolfson Children's Hospital presents the 2025 First Coast Design Show, December 5th through 7th at the Prime Osborne Convention Center. Antique art and garden dealers from around the region and vignettes and tablescapes from interior designers. Learn more at 904-202-2886.
This is WJCT News 89.